Drives one in the air. Deep right field. It's got a chance. Grand slam. Way back it might be. It could be. Cubs win. Cubs win. Cubs win. Holy cow.
The Dingers podcast is on the air. I'm your host, Mitch. I'm here with my boys, Jake and Jeff. We're here to chat about our Cubbies, and it's spring training is underway. And games have been going on. We talked 2 weeks ago, took a little break last week, and games that just started. Now we can dig in and really dig into all the things that have been happening so far within spring training. So let's start there. Let's start out with what are some of the things that have kind of stuck out to you? Maybe it's a player, maybe it's the team dynamic, maybe it's positionally. What are some things that have kind of stuck out to you? Give me like two. We'll kind of go around the horn, and then that will lead us into our discussion tonight. So let's start with you, Jake. What are some things that have kind of stood out to you so far this spring?
Yeah. So I think that it stood out to me. I tweeted about it yesterday. I've been watching, obviously, Jordan Wicks really closely. I think he was the obvious choice for the fifth starter position going into the regular season or going into spring. I thought he had a strikeout-less outing his last time out before yesterday. And then yesterday, my goodness, did he look stellar. I mean, that fastball up in the zone was playing. 4 1/3, 7 strikeouts is nuts. So been watching Jordan Wicks and just a lot of pitching, but also just kind of keeping an eye on the depth throughout the system right now. Obviously Garrett Cooper being signed, and Dom Smith. Dom Smith has hit a couple home runs, I believe.
I know at least one. He got all of them.
And I've always been like, I tweeted about it, and I think Cubs fans probably thought that I was joking about being a Dom Smith fan since we signed him, but I actually have a Dom Smith autographed relic rookie card that I bought when he was first coming up, because I thought he was going to be really good. So I'm excited to see him in pinstripes. I don't know if he'll provide anything to the regular season, but at the very least he's putting on a little bit of a show so far.
I'll say this. I remember, I think 3 years ago when we first started, I think it was Dom's first or second year with the Mets.
Second year, probably.
You were like all in on the Cubs need to get Dom Smith. Like, that dude can rake. And now we got him. Now let's see what he can do. He hasn't found a position yet in the major leagues that he can be the guy, but he's always been able to hit. So he's done so far this spring pretty well. Jeff, what about you?
Probably the way some of the younger guys have played, like Owen Cassie, and it was good to see Brendan Davis.
Yeah,
play well early on, especially since he battled some injuries last year, kind of cut his season short. Things like that. But honestly, for me, I'm kind of excited to see how our manager manages ball games this year and manages the staff. I think we're a little bit deeper as a bullpen this year than we were last year to start the season, so that'll be interesting to watch. Mitch, what are your two hot takes?
For me, it's something that the rotation is going to be huge this year. For me, I think that's going to be what carries us along, and really it will be a make or break if we're going to have a successful season. So the new guy, Imanaga, to see how he transitions into facing major league batting. And at the beginning of the season, I'm going to really be watching, because I know in Japan they went a 6-day rotation. How will he adjust to maybe a 5-day? And even now with an injury in our rotation, how does that just put more weight that he's going to have to carry in pitching big innings, even right away of the season? We know how much those early losses in the beginning of the season, how much they can affect later in the season when we're clawing to make the playoffs, how important those are. So, but I've liked what I've seen out of him so far, even though maybe his stats don't really show it. He has an 8 ERA right now, but he has looked good when he has pitched. He has looked good. Giving up a couple long balls. That's one thing I'm a little concerned about, is He is a fly ball pitcher, pitching in Wrigley when the wind's blowing out. That could be a little bit of a disaster. So hopefully he can strike a lot of guys out like he's been doing. His fastball's been able to play in major league so far against what we've seen in spring training. So that's something I've been watching. And then I've really been watching just how it's going to play out at third base, which we'll get into that big here in a little bit of Christopher Morel, how he kind of plays defensively. We know he can hit, but we need to kind of solidify. And I think they're going to give him a pretty long leash to kind of figure it out this season. Because I know that they are thinking that they have Matt Shaw waiting in the wings to be able to take over a third. If the Morel thing doesn't work out at third, that then they can shift Morel to DH and then just hand the keys over at third base to Shaw. Now, Shaw still has to earn it, but he's been raking this spring, been fun to watch. So those are just some of the things that I've been, as we're going into spring. Bullpen has looked pretty strong. Our guys that we are expecting to be our bullpen guys on the major league roster have looked good. So those are kind of things that I've watched in spring. It kind of changes, but as we're leading into the season, that's what we're kind of getting into. But we talked about, I kind of talked about our rotation, and with that, every spring brings about injuries, and we've had kind of a list of injuries that have happened that will affect our major league roster. We've had Ian Happ have some issues. He doesn't expect to miss time and be ready for opening day. Hopefully that's the case, but we haven't seen him a lot in spring. And I know if you've listened to the Compound podcast, he talks about how spring is his time to get ready, get on timing in his hitting. And even if he's not necessarily hitting in spring, but just to work on timing. And this is just time that he's not getting to be able to do that. So I know he's probably doing other things to train his eyes to get on time. But hopefully that doesn't hold him back. We need him for opening day. We need him right away. We have Nick Madrigal, who's been kind of injured, that hamstring again, which has been kind of a concern over the last couple of years. He's had hamstring issues quite a bit.
Surgery, had hamstring surgery too.
So that's when we talk about third base, Christopher Morel, we thought that Madrigal would be able to fill in there. He's a contact bat. We need a contact bat sometimes in this order. That's one that's kind of happened. And then Jameson Taillon is now unlikely to make opening day roster with his back injury and kind of nagging around. So let's start there. Where do we think, or who do we think is going to fill and eat innings at the beginning of the season if Taillon does end up going to the injured reserve list and we need somebody to fill in? You talked about Jordan Wicks, like he's probably going to be our fifth starter. Who do we see going to fill in? There's kind of a list that we have. We have Smiley, we have Wisniewski, and Assad that can all probably do that. Maybe a Ben Brown. I don't know. That's kind of a long shot. But who do you see being the guy that's going to fill in, especially at the beginning of the season, eating those innings and giving us some quality starts? What do you think, Jeffrey?
I think those starts might be like by committee, where like Smiley might come in relief of like a Wisniewski start or an Assad start. I don't know.
Or depending on matchups. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I don't really like Smiley as starting a game, but I kind of liked him in that long relief role. I think he was more comfortable there, and I think he pitched better in that kind of a scenario than starting the game. Yeah, that's what I think.
And Smiley, his first outing of spring did not go well, but his last outing, I think he started the game that Wicks came in and started really, really well, pitched good 4 innings of solid baseball. So yeah, he might be really good at that 4 innings type role, not letting him get him to see him a third time. And I know that's been his problem when he was a starter for the Cubs, is when they saw him that third time, that's when usually trouble hit.
Yeah, I think I didn't even think about the idea of piggybacking, but Jeff, I think that's a great point. And I think it'll be, so I'll kind of backtrack a little bit. I'm really, really bummed and sad for Caleb Killian.
Yeah.
Because man, did he look sharp he just looked confident on the mound. And I think that's the big thing, because before he came over to the Cubs, he was a command pitcher. So control is more generally like you kind of, you've got to feel for the zone. Command is dotting. And that's what he was looking like this spring. And now we're not going to see him until midseason. And that'll be, with the rehab assignment at AAA, probably, if he even makes it back to the majors this year. So I'm really bummed. I thought Caleb Killian looked good. I actually was kind of rooting for Caleb Killian before the Taillon injury. I was kind of rooting for Caleb Killian to get to force their hand and get the 5th spot in the rotation over Wicks. So yeah, it just is. It's a bummer, but I think it's going to be Smiley. I think Smiley's going to get that 5th spot. And taking what Jeff said, yeah, I think it's going to be. We're going to see probably Smiley go 2 times through the order, and I think that if he knows going in that he's not expected to go deep into the game, he's going to let his stuff play up and kind of air it out a little bit more. The tough thing that's going to end up happening there is trying to shuttle guys, up and down through the minors. So, yeah, it's going to be Smiley. I don't think that's what Cubs fans necessarily want to hear, but them's the breaks, ladies and gents.
I have a little caveat, thanks to Scott C. from Iowa. He's still on the Trevor Bauer train. And I tell you what, if you could get him for couple million bucks, take
league minimum. He said he would take league minimum.
Let's take the gamble here.
He mowed down the Dodgers AAA. If you could get Trevor Bauer, just the pitcher and nothing else, I would take him, but I think he's going to bring a lot of baggage. But that does open the door of like us talking about like, could there be other people there? We have Snell still out there. You have Jordan Montgomery still out there. I will say this. I don't think the Cubs are going to spend and go get one of those 2 guys. But you do have a Michael Lorenzen still out there. Could they go get him to eat some innings? Like he pitched pretty well last year for the Phillies. I mean, I would look at that. But if you're looking in-house to answer the question, I think Craig Counsell really likes Wisniewski. I think he does. Like I've seen them like interact and like, I don't know. I've heard him talk about him. I think he likes Wisniewski. So I could see it just because Counsell has his guy. Like I think he would maybe go with Wisniewski, but I want to throw my hat out there for Assad. The dude like pitched so well towards the end of the season last year. And even like, I feel like if you listen to Chicago Cubs podcast and I listen to the other ones, I support, like, go listen to all of them. Like I encourage you to listen to all of them. I feel like we as podcasters and even the media, like we forget about Javier Assad and how good he was. And we don't talk enough about how solid he was towards the end of the season for us to be able to help us make that push into the playoffs. So I would love to see Javier Assad get some of those innings, and then you could piggyback him and Smiley off of each other, which I think they did a little bit last year, was had them kind of working together. So I like Javier Assad. I like his stuff. I like his demeanor, and but both of them would be good in the bullpen.
Maybe Craig Counsell is the manager personality type that'll unlock Hayden Wesneski. And he won't be so wild to start. He'll just come in and be calm and smooth. You never know.
The thing for me with Wesneski is his fastball just looks so hittable. I mean, it just gets. I don't have the stats, like the pitch stats up right now, but it just feels like it gets obliterated. And yes, the sweeper is good, but if hitters are sitting on fastball, waiting for that fastball to come, I don't know if he tunnels his pitches well enough to fool guys. And we've seen what happens when he doesn't, right? I mean, baseballs just get destroyed off of him.
It's like throwing gas on a fire.
It's
what it
like
is.
I'd like to see. Obviously, I'd love to see Wesneski be a factor. But I think it's more likely that he's going to be a multi-inning reliever.
Yep. now since we've talked about the injuries, we brought up Madrigal. Let's talk about third base. How do you see that playing out this year? Do you see Morel getting a very long leash? Do you see him? Yeah. How do you see third base playing out? Is it going to be one where we, by the middle of the season, are calling up a Shaw or calling up somebody else to play third? Or is it the deadline we're going to go try to get a third baseman again? Or do you think that Morel's just going to take third base and say it's mine and really outperform? Because we've seen just so far in spring, Morel's looked really, really good at third, and he's looked really, really bad at third. If you caught on Twitter, can't remember his name. The podcast is The Setup Man. It's a Cub podcast. He did an amazing breakdown of Christopher Morel. So go check out The Setup Man on it's Setup Man Pod on Twitter. He has a YouTube too, but on the YouTube he has a breakdown of Christopher Morel playing third base so far this spring. And it was great. Did a great job breaking everything down, but there has been some struggles when it comes to him at third base. And I don't think that there's a problem with him picking it. I think he can pick the ball. I think it's his arm in being able to make good solid throws and not be wild over there. And he broke down kind of his arm slot. But yeah, so I'm going to plug that, but also open up the question, how do you see third base playing out this year? Let's start with you, Jeff.
Well, I really hope Morel does his overtake it. So that's just one question mark right off the board. But I think they got to give him an honest shot at it too. I mean, historically, other than maybe Ron Santo and whoever played third base in the 80s, I mean, our third basemen have been questionable defenders anyway. Like, Aramis could hit, and he provided a ton of offense, so it kind of overlooked when he, tank plays. And that's, I think what everybody is concerned with. Are we going to have somebody that plays above average great defense over there? So it's also a big question mark because if he can't really do it that well, and Madrigal's fighting a hamstring injury all season, yeah, are we going to call somebody up midseason? And it will be too late at that time. Who knows? But that's my biggest question marks that I have at third base right now.
Yeah, I think I want to get into this a little bit more later because I have another question I want to talk about after we talk about the spring breakout. But I mean, you look at the 40-man and Miles Mastrobuoni is listed. Yeah, my cat was, if you're watching, my cat was crying outside the door and knocking the door. And I don't know if you guys could hear it, but it was driving me nuts. So here he is. This is Milo. And yeah, so I think Miles Mastrobuoni is listed as an infielder. Obviously, we saw him at third base a little bit, more of a middle infielder, but he can make it. He can make it work. Obviously, Patrick Wisdom, but I kind of wonder, he's not on the 40-man right now, but if someone's on the IL, that you can get him back on the 40-man, and if you want to do that, does David Bodie come back into play?
Ooh.
And I don't know. I mean, he's shown some pop this spring, but overall, his numbers haven't it's a small sample size, right? His average hasn't been great, but I agree with Jeff. I think we're going to see. I mean, you think about how much run Mancini got at first base for us last year, and the performance that he gave defensively. Morel's going to get at least double that because his bat plays. Obviously, that's the problem right now that we're trying to figure out. So I think he's going to get a super long leash. I think, Cubs fans, brace yourselves. There are probably going to be some errors that he commits that are going to have us shaking our heads.
Growing pains.
Cost us a game or two. Yeah, exactly.
Growing pains.
But that's the thing that's frustrating right now is you can tell that he's in his head. And I know that it was part of that breakdown. he like triple clutched that throw that sailed over first base. And it's like, dude, just get the ball and throw it. Just get the ball and throw it. Don't doubt yourself. You're in the major leagues for a reason. You've got a cannon. Just do it. So you just need like a mental skills coach there teaching him. Like, obviously he's working on his footwork at third as well, but you need someone there psychologically reassuring him, like, hey man, you got this. Like, you are a stud athlete. Like, don't get in your head about it. Just throw the ball.
Hire a hype man. Every team needs a hype guy.
So I have said that I would kill to be the hype man in the Cubs dugout. Like, I would kill for that job.
As armchair baseball managers that we all are,
yes.
How much weight do you put on spring training performances when they get so few innings because they're trying to evaluate so many players in a game situation?
I mean, I would put a little bit of weight on how Morel is performing at third, just because you can kind of see him, if he's this tense and scared to make a mistake in spring training when there's nothing on the line, what's it going to be when there is games on the line? So he just needs to chill. Like, he's got a cannon. It just, he needs to slow the game down. And I think that's the problem with any young baseball player, is getting the game to slow down. The game speeds up so fast in the infield, and the next thing you pick the ball up and you look up and the guy's like, seems like he's like 3 steps away from first, and you got to like let her go. And it's getting you to be able to slow down and know your timing and know your routine. And so it's just, and you got to think, like, Morel hasn't played third a ton the last 2 years, where in the minors, he came up playing a lot of third base. I remember watching him at Iowa when he first came up to Iowa. He played quite a bit of third base for the Iowa Cubs. And so he's getting back to a position. It's just going to be getting reps and getting comfortable back over there. But like, the thing is, you need a dude that can, with some pop at third base. And we thought we had it with Wisdom. He had his troubles over at third defensively. We saw the strikeouts. And I think with either one of them, we can take the strikeouts as long as we're getting production and good timely hitting, not just home runs, but good solid contact and driving in runs, and we'll take some errors. And what I said, I think 2 weeks ago, like, I'm confident in Morel being at third base because Dansby Swanson is right next to him. If I was Dansby, I would say, hey, anything glove side, dude, I got. Let that thing go. Let Dansby go get it. You just worry about guarding the line and anything in front of you. But anything in the hole deep, Dansby's got it. So that's what I would be.
That was the communication in the game yesterday. I mean, he made that great diving stop, but you know, the throw, Dansby's momentum is taking him toward the back. And I think, Jeff, that's a great question you ask. Like, what can we actually evaluate in spring training? And I think right now it's a case-by-case basis. It depends on what you're looking at. And as Mitch is,
I just look at it like from Shota. Like, he's had so few innings pitched, and his ERA is like an 8. People are like, "Oh my God, why are we signing this guy?" I'm like, it's spring training. Calm down. You know what I mean?
With pitchers, it's a little bit different. Like,
totally. And I don't know if everybody, like, I don't think people casually watching understand that. Like, it's reiterated during broadcasts that pitchers are working on things, and obviously people who are watching spring training baseball at the level and listening to podcasts or reading about it at the level that we are, obviously the people that are digesting it at even higher level, but at our level, like, we see that that's being reiterated. But I think that, yes, the defensive evaluation is big. I think watching young hitters and their approach at the plate, I think that's more of it. It's not always an easy thing to measure, but that's the eye test, right? Like, how does a guy look at the plate? And it's tough. Like, one thing that drives me nuts is that we don't get velocity data on everybody at Sloan. It's like, this is by all accounts, this is a state-of-the-art facility, but we don't have TrackMan or Hawkeye there to get the baseball savant stats. And that's one thing. And like a lot of the podcasts I'm listening to right now, specifically like pitcher focused podcasts, we don't get to see, the velocity and movement differences in all of these games because the data and tracking that we have at all major league stadiums, for whatever reason, are not available at all of these spring facilities yet. And I think once we get to that point, we're going to be able to take a lot more away from pitching performances. We're going to see how guys, like, you're going to get the minutia of, like, the Lance Brozdowski style breakdowns of the spin rates and the vertical approach angle and all these things that I don't even understand yet. I haven't taken the deep dive into all of those things, but yeah, it's a case-by-case basis. And Jeff, I think, like, yeah, evaluating someone like Morel defensively, or what's another, who else is there someone, I feel like, who else are we evaluating defensively? Is there another guy? I mean, Michael Busch at first base is like, it's like an eye test thing. So it's, like, at the very least, like, I think the fun thing is watching the young guys and getting to see them play against major league talent.
Yep. Speaking of Michael Busch, let's jump to the other side and talk a little bit about first base. And I feel like the thing is, we've talked about first base and third base as being the holes in the Cubs lineup for the last year. And we're still talking about it, and there's still questions, but, I feel like we're a little bit more that the Cubs have kind of pushed more of their chips in on Michael Busch being the dude at first base for the next couple of years. I think that's a little bit more like solid, that they've like, no, this is our guy, and this is who we want getting most of the reps at first base. And so far, the dude can hit. Like, the dude has been able to hit in everywhere he's gone. And spring training so far, 2 bombs, one of them being off a left-handed pitcher, which lefty on left, like, that's what you want to happen. And he's looked pretty good at first base. Like, so I'm super excited to watch Michael Busch perform this year, and just to see what he can do, getting an everyday major league job. Like, I think he's one that he's just gonna, like, he was in the Dodger system. He kind of knew in the back of his mind, this isn't gonna, like, there's no place for me. Now, being with the Cubs, he knows, like, it's mine for the taking. I just need to go out there and just ball out. And so put a stick in his hand, let him rake, and just let him be better than Mancini at first base, and we're going to be golden with him. I feel like it is a low bar, but you know what? Like, he's going to hit better than whatever we tried to throw out there at the beginning of last season. And he's got better defensive capabilities than both of them. He's younger. He's pretty athletic. He's played all over the field. If he can play third base, he should darn well be able to play first base. And so,
I think any dad in America can play first base. It's just playing catch over there is what it is.
Well,
yeah,
I think
just 100 mile an hour grounders.
You stand there with your foot on a white sack. Somebody throws you a ball and you catch it.
It's that easy.
Yeah,
I love
it's
it.
that simple.
It's that easy.
But like, with Michael Busch over there, they've went out and they have a slew of other guys that are also first basemen. You have Garrett Cooper, you have Patrick Wisdom, you have Dom Smith, you have like all these guys that, like, some of these guys are going to get cut. Like, they're not going to be with the Cubs organization come opening day. Like, they're not going to take a role down in Iowa as being, maybe Garrett Cooper might, just because I think he chose the Cubs because he sees that as, like, he wants to be on a good quality team and he wants to play for a playoff push. Like, he sees that he could maybe earn a bench role and get some maybe DH spots. But like, how do you see that kind of playing out, Jake?
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, I'm looking up Cooper's splits right now. I want to see how he does against lefties. This is
where'd he come from?
Well, with Miami Marlins, he was an all-star. And then last season, in the middle of the season, he got traded to the Padres and finished out with the Padres last year. But dude can rake. The dude can hit.
Yeah, I think at the very least, you've got a guy who's a weak side platoon. So weak side platoon being a guy who gets starts against lefties, and it's considered weak side because there aren't as many lefty starters in the game. So that would obviously make Michael Busch the strong side of the platoon. But we're seeing, I mean, like you said, Mitch, loud contact off of lefties in 2 at-bats yesterday. I mean, it sounded great. Like that's exactly what you want to hear. Like barreled up, left on left crime. I love it.
And his other home run was off Hunter Green too. Like,
yeah, yes, yeah.
It was a fastball at 98. Like,
yeah, like, you know me, I'm a nerd about my pitching stats. And the thing is, that's Hunter Green's weakness is his fastball shape is hittable. So if he doesn't locate it well, it gets banged. And yeah, so like we'll probably hear about that more, this season because the Reds are going to be contenders, but their rotation's kind of wonky right now. Yeah, so I really like the pickup of Garrett Cooper. It's a little bit of a head scratcher because I don't know if there's a spot for him right now, but hey, I mean, knock on wood, but more guys might get injured and it might necessitate them adding him to the 40-man, signing him to a major league deal. I think that's what he's like. Some of these guys are auditioning. I mean, so is Dom Smith. And I think that Dom Smith, I'd love to see him break through. I mean, he's been quoted as saying that he's been injured the last few seasons. He just hasn't been healthy. And I don't think it helped that last year he was on the Washington Nationals, dude, which is, and you liken him to Michael Busch, where he was playing in New York when, I mean, the Mets are whatever. I don't know. Who knows how they're going to be offensively, but he was behind Pete Alonso at first base. He played a little bit of outfield, but I wouldn't stick him out there again. And obviously he can DH too, but it's a good mix. It's a good problem to have. We've talked about this in the past that having surplus pieces is a good thing. And I think that the signings of Garrett Cooper and Dom Smith, and who's the third? David Peralta, right? Who's still rehabbing.
Yeah.
I don't know if Peralta, I don't know when he's going to see game action. I haven't seen any updates there, but these guys are a tier or two above Mancini and Hosmer. Like these guys have, especially Dom Smith, still has something to prove. He's only 28 years old, and the guy was a top prospect and had a really solid rookie season. And according to him, has just been plagued by nagging injuries. So there are pieces there. And if Busch doesn't work out, which I think he will, we'll see what the opt-outs look like for Garrett Cooper and Dom Smith with those minor league deals.
For me, I would love to see them stick around in the organization just because, dude, it's such a long season and there's going to be injuries. There's going to be times when you need some sticks that can provide some offense. And all these guys like Dom Smith, Garrett Cooper, like they're guys that can hit. Like defensively, maybe there's some question marks, but they can hit. And sometimes when we get into June and there's a lull where we're not scoring runs, like they're guys that could help us push some runs across. And so I would really like to find ways to find them some spots in this organization to be able to get some time, because they will be able to provide some quality wins. They'll help us win some games. And I mean, that's, I think Council talked about it the other day when I listened to an interview, is like, we have depth. Like that's really good right now. We're in a good spot with our organization where we have depth that are veterans that have had major league experience. And we have depth with guys, young guys that are right on the doorstep of being major leaguers or getting the call. And so that's always good to have. Like even Amaya, like you can watch a game, the Cubs, he's providing depth and some flexibility at catcher when you have Gomes and Afreo, like also there. Like It's just some guys that have played quite a few major league seasons, and then you have a Maya there. It's depth at every position, and right now that's good for the Cubs to have, especially when the other teams in the Central maybe don't have that depth, and there's a lot of question marks in their teams. So I feel like we're in a good spot. I did want to pose this question. So the Cubs are projected to win mid 80s this season. Like 85, 83, 86, depending on where you go for preseason projection win total. About the same as last year, maybe a little bit more. And last year when we had this conversation, we talked about some X factors that like, hey, if we did this, that would really maybe get us into the playoffs. And one of them was Cody Bellinger outperforming expectations. And he did that. And we saw we were one game away from making the playoffs. So what are your guys' X factors this year for us to over exceed that mid 80s and make the playoffs? What are 3 things that maybe need to happen for the Cubs to be able to do that? Jake, start with you.
Yeah, we need Seiya to continue the second half momentum. Sorry, Jeff. You've gotten to go first on the last 2 questions. Yeah, we need Seiya to continue that production. The projections look solid, looking at like a 122 WRC plus. And hey, the one thing I want to see, I want to look back at past I want to look back at last year's projections. And I know they measure this, like they have systems that they go back and see how well the projections did, but I want to see them. Give me last year's data and let me actually compare to the actual numbers. But
what do you mean data?
No, it's data. What are you saying, data? No.
Data.
I think Seiya, I want to see Seiya make an all-star team, and let's get real lofty. Get MVP votes. I'm not saying, top 3. But I think this is the year that Seiya really, really fully breaks out.
Yeah. Love that.
So Seiya's number 1. Are we each giving one first? Or
sure, we can go around. Jeffrey, what's yours?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta come up with 2? Great.
No, just one. You just gotta come up with one.
Just one.
I'd say we got to fill in that question mark at third base. We got to have a consistent defense in the infield.
And that was my number 1 was Morel taking ownership, hitting 40 bombs, and being daily at third base.
Man, you're not asking for a lot. 40 bombs.
He's capable. If he would have played every day last year, he would have had over 40 bombs. He just I could see if he got an everyday start, the power's there. It hasn't changed the last couple of years. It's just getting ABs. And so I could totally see that. And if that happened, that would definitely push us over the mid 80s win total. All right, back to you, Jake.
Yeah, I'm between a couple right now, but let's see a little bit more power out of Nico Horner's bat. A little bit more power, because we saw a great season, 4.7 Fangraphs WAR, which is excellent. How many stolen bases? 43 stolen bases. Let's bump that up a little bit. Let's get double-digit home runs. He had 9 last year, 10 in 2022. I'd love to see Nico Horner get 15 home runs. OPS maybe of last year it was just over 700, 750-ish, doing some quick math here. I'd like to see Nico Horner with a 780 OPS, pushing 800, 50 stolen bases, 15 home runs. And he's entering his 27 season. Projections have anywhere ranging from the low of 8 home runs, high of 12. Stolen bases kind of in the mid 30s range, and WRC plus even to last year at 102. But I think, Mitch, you and I have talked about it. We think that Nico Horner could have a Trey Turner light upside. And
Yeah.
I'd love to see him put the league on notice this year, as him coming out as a top 2 second baseman, because Mookie Betts is moving to shortstop, so don't have to worry about that. Top 2 second baseman, maybe behind Ozzie Albies. It's Albies and Horner 1 and 2.
I do want to throw it out there. If you're in the chat, like on YouTube, if you're watching us on YouTube or on Twitter, share your X factor. What needs to happen? We want to hear from you. We'll give you a shout out. So
we really love comments.
In the chat. Yep.
Don't be shy.
All right, Jeff, what's your second X factor?
Wasn't our pitching stats ERA at the second half of the season last year like top 3 in the majors?
Yeah.
Okay. So I said we got to repeat that. Whatever combination of starters we throw out there, I think they got to at least shove for 6.
All right. So I'll piggyback off that and say my X factor is Jordan Wicks.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Wicks, we need a 5th guy, and I want him to really solidify himself as being a man in the rotation. Like he's in it every 5th day. He's going to be there. Another lefty, which bodes well in the NL Central. He's looked strong, good 4-seamer, good, amazing changeup. He has other secondary pitches, decent curveball, good cutter. Just want to see him take a big step forward. We saw last year him struggle, kind of going up and down a little bit. He had that amazing changeup. I think other teams kind of figured out, no, we're just not going to swing at the changeup and wait for his other pitches. If he can get his other pitches to be major league quality, I want to see Jordan Wicks make a huge step forward, and he will help us to be able to push that win total higher. Because I don't think people projecting aren't seeing Jordan Wicks being a solid 5th starter. So he's my second X factor. All right, Jake, what about you for your last one?
Yeah, I'll go from the rookie pitcher to veteran pitcher. And not my favorite pitcher in the rotation. I'm not going Kyle Hendricks. I am going with Jameson Taillon. There was a lot of excitement around Taillon. I mean, you hear interviews of his teammates talking about, J-Mo, look out for J-Mo this year. He's a competitor. He's been working this off season. He probably added a pitch, right? It feels like everybody's adding splitters this year. I talked to a guy, an inside source, and I asked him, I said, is Taillon a candidate for a splitter? And the guy was like, yeah. And he has a direct line of communication. We'll say he's got a direct line of communication. Taillon. I don't know if I'm allowed to share. I don't know if I'm allowed to share all this, so I got to be a little careful. But it's a reputable source.
But
I promise.
You sound legit right now, just so you know. Like you're like,
no. Well,
I got a guy.
I've talked about him on here before. I've talked.
I
about
know
the
a guy.
Before, so if you've listened, it's not a secret. But yeah, I think that Taillon's the X factor. This dude wants to win. This dude wants to compete. The front office signed him for a reason. It's not another Tyler Chatwood signing. I think that Taillon is legit. I mean, just look back at his stats. He's at the very least a solid innings eater. But I think that he wants to be more than that, and I think that he's going to be this season once he gets the health right.
Jeffrey, your third X factor.
I thought we're only going to do 2.
No, we're doing 3. Just because I have one more.
Just because you have one more?
Yep.
Oh, one more X factor. Consistency at the plate. I think we got to be better overall offensively. I mean, we can't score 12 runs one game and then score 6 runs the next 3 games. We can't have.
Yeah.
We can't play series.
It's been a problem for a long time too.
Yeah.
My third X factor, and I'm actually going to take a 3rd and 4th. So my third X factor is bullpen. We saw how last year, towards the end of the season, we just ran out of gas. Like, and we were riding 3 guys, 4 guys the whole season, and injuries happened, and it just can't happen. With Hector Neris in the mix, like from everything that I've read and heard, like he's kind of become the leader down there in the bullpen. Love to see it. He's a horse, but we're gonna need to be able to stay healthy and not. That's where, like, talking about Craig Counsell, like I trust Craig Counsell can handle the bullpen better than Ross to be able to not get to the point where we're pitching quads every single night. And so, like, it's just in lighter, we're like just burning him out. And that might be, I don't want to put all the blame on Ross, because I think he kind of got in that position where we kind of had to make a push the All-Star break to even get in consideration to make the playoffs. And so it just, we ran out of steam. So that's one of mine. And then Michael Busch, like he's gonna, like, third and first are gonna be X factors, because I think everywhere else we're pretty solid. If we can get Michael Busch and get the stats that he had in the minor leagues last year, we will be a playoff team. I'm going to say it. If he can repeat what he did in the minor leagues last year and at first base, he could be, I'm not going to say an all-star, because first base is stacked.
Oh yeah.
For the NL.
Yeah. It's Bryce Harper and Pete Alonso and Freddie Freeman.
Yeah. So, but if he can repeat that's going to help us get into the playoffs. So I want to see Michael Busch.
Yeah. Say that one more time. Say Busch one more time. All right. Did anybody else listening, the image in their head go to a Busch Light commercial?
Oh yeah.
When Mitch says Busch.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to have a beer.
I think Obvious Shirts just came out with like a logo that was like Busch Bomb, and it had like a Busch beer can.
Really?
So, yeah.
I was gonna say too, Mitch. I was gonna say the corners. That was one of my sleeper X factors, and then I was gonna say in the bullpen Luke Little as well.
Yeah, love Luke Little.
I think Luke Little. If Luke Little is on this season, having him, I mean, that dude's a mountain. It's insane.
So Jake had a question before we got on air about just our farm system and what's the game called?
The Spring Breakout Series.
And these are the guys for the Cubs that are going to be kind of on that team, or they're playing a game, right?
I think it's multiple. I don't know. I can't remember if it's like a series or what the deal is. I believe the Cubs' first game is against the Sox on Friday, which is going to be a bloodbath. But
yeah,
because they've got multiple. I mean, we've got multiple starters in here, so I'm guessing it's going to be a multi game
definitely
series. But I don't know. I'm excited for it, but not excited enough to seek out how the whole thing works. Just excited to see some of the guys on this list. So if you're watching us on YouTube, which you can tune in starting tonight, it'll be every Monday night around 8:15. You can, check, subscribe to the On Tap Sports YouTube channel to get alerts. But yeah, so if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the list here. If not, just search on Twitter. Honestly, on Twitter is easier to find a list, just a straightforward list. Yeah, I mean, I can start with. There are a lot of names on here that I'm excited for, but I'm really excited to watch Cole Franklin. Cole Franklin, a couple years ago, was our top pitching prospect, and I think that this guy, like, this is a make or break year for him. I think he knows that health is important for him this year. But I think Cole Franklin's got stuff, and I think that I would assume that our guys over at Cubs on Deck would agree with us. That's it, right? Are they Cubs on Deck? Yeah,
Cubs on Tap.
No, the prospect guys. The
yes, the Cubs on. Yeah.
My
goodness.
Oh my
Porter Hodge.
Yeah, Cubs on Deck podcast. If you're not listening to that, listen to it.
I'll tell you what, there's some really great names on this list.
Yeah, Jeff, who stands out to you?
Porter Hodge, Cade Horton. Those are just fabulous names. But
it doesn't even matter. Just the name. Just
the names.
Yeah.
I'm looking at like James Toronto's second base. I mean,
Yeah.
it'll be a while before he comes up to the big leagues, obviously. But and Owen Casey, another one.
Yeah, let him
This
keep raking
Frankie
for sure.
Scalzo guy sounds too much like the Scalzo for me.
Dude,
I
he
don't know if
he pitched well. He came in.
can't
Oh
handle
my
that.
gosh, what was that? He came in kind of like in relief when Killian got hurt, I think. So I don't even know if he was planning on coming in. I mean, I'm sure at some point he was going to come in that game, but he came in and finished off the inning, and he looked sharp. Doesn't throw very hard, maybe like 92, if I remember right. But
That's all right.
looking at his minor league, that was actually the guy that I was going to say, but I was like, I can't pick a reliever. But looking at his minor league numbers last year, he had like a 2-something ERA, and like, I mean, he had a lot of appearances. I'll look that up. But Mitch, who are you excited to watch?
So for me, it's gonna go. It has to be Matt Shaw. Like, I love his bat, and I want to see him perform. And by June,
All right.
get called up, because
want
I think his bat plays in the major leagues.
Okay.
Oh,
I
for
want
sure.
everybody to look at this list, the position these guys play. Think of our up the middle defense and how that's going to be what it is for how long. Look how many second basemen and shortstops are on here.
But the thing the Cubs have done is they've drafted shortstops because they can move because they're
Move 'em.
athletic.
Yeah, they're the
My
best
goodness.
athletes. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And
Well-
Matt Shaw is probably going to play more of a third base. I think just because we have Dansby and Nico, I think he will play more at third base. But what I love about this is that we have Matt Shaw, because my question mark last year was, if Nico gets hurt, what do we do? If Dansby gets hurt, Nico moves over short, but then what do we do at second? And we didn't have anybody that I would feel super confident of throwing over there. It would be like a David Bodie getting called up. But now when you have a Matt Shaw, like, the dude's going to hit. And if he has to come in and fill in for Nico at second, I'm confident he can play a decent second base. He made a play the other day in spring training playing third base, going towards the line, and made an amazing pick, and then threw a hose over to get a guy out. So like, that's the guy that's going to stand out for me is Matt Shaw. What about you, Jake?
Yeah, so I said Cole Franklin, but let me let you guys in on a little secret. My boy here, Frankie Scalzo, he's got what would automatically be a top 10 mustache in the game. Lovely Italian name, Frankie Scalzo Jr. at that. And last year across what was it, high A and double A.
What's
he
the style of the mustache? Handlebar, Fu Manchu? What are we talking?
No, we got a
here?
classic milkman push broom mustache. This is
Really?
Oh
All
yeah,
right.
it's excellent. It's excellent. And it's black. I mean, it's like it's a Mario mustache. It's a black.
Is it
mustache.
thick?
It's
Nice and
Oh
thick?
yeah. They were talking
All
about it when he came in the game on the broadcast. They were complimenting his mustache.
Oh my wow. Okay,
Yeah.
because there's nothing
Yeah.
weirder than like the pencil mustache. That's kind of just creeps me out.
No, this is a legit. Like I said, did I call it an 80 grade mustache? Because it is.
Dude.
So in 39 games last year, 72 and 2/3 innings pitched, 73 strikeouts, 2.35 ERA, and a 1.07 WHIP. That plays, man.
He looks like somebody that knows something about capicola and cannolis.
It's gabagool, please. It's gabagool.
Gabagool.
And yeah, 21 walks. I mean, the walk to strikeout solid, kind of like about a 3 ratio, which is fine for a bullpen arm. I think Frankie's kind of an underdog, but I really want to see Frankie Scalzo. Come on, man, in Chicago, like that dude would arrive to a lot of fanfare. So 14th round pick out of Grand Canyon in 2021. Give me all the Scals.
Oh, I would love it. Just that yeah. On the mound alone.
He's got a nose ring too. My guy
Huh?
gets it. My guy gets it.
Yeah.
It's not in that picture, but he's got a nose ring.
Yep. All right.
And a dead body in his trunk.
But like, I mean, it'll be fun to tune in to watch these games, see what the Cubs have in their minor league system. They've had Kevin Alcantara, Owen Casey, Brent Davis, a couple of these guys. Brent Davis we've had on our show, somebody that we've looked forward to. Just a couple of years ago, he was our number one prospect because of injuries. I would love to see Owen Casey or Brent Davis break out this year and earn himself some playing time in the major leagues, get his debut in the majors this year. I would love Owen Casey to push the envelope this year and be a September call up and provide some pop in our order later in the season. I would love to see Cade Horton maybe be a bullpen guy or possibly a rotation guy.
You can bet. You can put money on Cade Horton coming, barring injury. Cade Horton will be at the major league level this year.
But my point is, like,
he's a consensus like top 3 pitching prospect in MLB.
Well, my point is, like, we have this list here, and these are all guys that could make their debut or get some playing time to help us push into the playoffs this year. And so that's why this list is fun, because these are guys that we've looked to for years of when back in the day when we traded Yu Darvish and got Owen Casey, that we've looked to like one day they will be here. Well, now they're right on the doorstep, and I'm excited to be able to see what they can do to be able to help us not only this year, but in years to come, to be able to provide us with some playoff wins and playoff championships and some World Series wins. So love to see it.
So I've got one more question. Since we're talking prospects. So I want to point something out really quick. I know we're at the end of the podcast here, but one thing I want to talk about, like, I was going to ask the question, but I'm going to give kind of what I think the scenario is. What has to happen for PCA to get called up this year? Like to get back up to the majors? The obvious answer is he presses the issue at Iowa and makes it so that they have no other choice but to call him up because he's tearing it up. I don't know. I just don't have that faith in PCA's offense that he's going to do that. I think he'll be good, but I don't think he's going to be so good that it's like, we've got to get him up here now. Like he's banging on the door. So other than that, there's a weird kind of rotation that we've hit on. There's a triangle right up the middle. You got center field, first base, third base, and how all of that works is going to determine if and when PCA gets the call. So if Michael Busch hits, it's going to be more difficult for PCA to get the call up unless Christopher Morel is atrocious at third base and the front office says, you know what? Let's see if we can move Busch back over to third. I know his defense isn't great, but in theory, he has the arm to do it. And maybe, you hate to mention the yips for Morel, but like, could it get to that point? Yeah, I think it could. Ian our buddy Ian down in the comments says he had dingers and mash for dinner. So I think that PCA's call up is dependent on 3 players, because if Busch doesn't hit at first, which I have confidence that he will, then you move Bellinger to first, and then it opens up center field. So it's an interesting kind of like love triangle or love square, I guess, that I think we're going to be keeping an eye on all season. Now, I just wanted to present that, and I wanted to ask a question after that, because my buddy Mike posed a really great question in our group chat today, because he was listening to 670 earlier, and they were talking about it, and he said, where would you put PCA on a list of Cubs prospects in order of your excitement? So like the prospects that you're most excited for. And I said, I would say in order, Owen Casey, number 1, Matt Shaw, number 2, Cade Horton, number 3, Jefferson Rojas, young shortstop prospect, number 4, James Triantos, number 5, and PCA, number 6. And I said it's just because I love PCA. He's been so fun to watch this spring. I love the blue hair. I love his fire on the field. His in dugout interview with Elise Menaker. If you didn't see that, look that up. What a well-spoken, well thought out dude. I just like the offense. I just don't believe in it yet. And I think that's why the excitement for PCA is limited for me, even though he's our number one prospect. What do you guys think? Who would you put? You don't have to list everybody, but are there guys that you would definitively say that you're more excited for over PCA, and who are they?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Like for me, like Cole Franklin, Cade Horton, Kevin Alcantara. I mean, we got to see a little bit of PCA last year, and I think it was maybe our depth down in the minors wasn't that great due to injuries of Brennan Davis.
Yeah.
The kid's defense is second to none. He can play center field, but it's the bat.
Yeah.
He hits like Jason Hayward.
I wouldn't go that far, but it's the contact rate. Jason Hayward made a lot of contact just straight into the ground.
And it's the second baseman.
Yeah.
But that, he made a few gaffes running the bases last year. So, I mean, he's got things to clean up. I'm sure he's well aware of it. But, yeah, he's got it's not an insurmountable mountain to climb to get back to the majors, but there's other people that might be a little bit in front of him just because their bat is almost there, or if not there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like I'm super excited for Cade Horton. Like I'm all about homegrown pitching and being able to we haven't had a guy that has been ours that's like you get behind like Kerry Wood, like that is like the number one, like one of the best pitchers in baseball coming up, or like the Mark Pryor that you're like, this dude is going to shove and we are getting confident he's going to sit right in at our 1 and 2 in our rotation. And Cade Horton could be that guy for us. And so I'm excited for that. I'm excited about Matt Shaw. I'm excited about Owen Casey from their spring, seeing what they could provide. Like I'm excited for those. And I'm right there with you, Jake. Like PCA just hasn't excited me because he can go get him out in center and he could get called up and win a Gold Glove maybe in center, but his bat is just not there. And I don't know if it ever will be.
He's only 21. He's only 21, which is a thing that I have to keep reminding myself. But
what I'm saying that in what I think Cubs fans want it to be. I think they want it to be Corbin Carroll of like power, right. And I don't think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be a lot of choppers that he beats out infield singles, gonna do the small things, move runners over. Like he's gonna get on base after work counts. Like he's gonna be that, not the hitting bombs and for leadoff runs. It's like
it's Willie Mays Hayes, but a ginger.
Willie Mays Hayes in movie 1, not in movie 2.
Movie 2.
He's got blue hair, not red hair.
Blue,
He used to be a ginger.
You could have blue hair, Jeff.
I'm not. No.
Quick. Can we highlight Ian's comment because it made me laugh out loud.
This one?
Horton strikes out a who? That's when he makes his debut. We have to remember that because Ian just gave us an excellent show title. Horton strikes out a who?
But yeah, that's I'm excited to see, and yeah, PCA could excite us. He was fun last year.
He will have exciting moments. He will excite us. But I think offensively there are going to be more downs than ups.
Yeah. But I believe Council will be able to put him in the right position and do well with him. So, one last question. Is it I'm going to flip you off or flick you off?
Flip.
It's either.
It's flip.
I've always said flick, but you can say
no way. Yeah. That's weird.
I'm going to flick you the bird I'm
gonna flip you the bird.
No, flip
There's
you
no
the bird.
flicking.
I'm
I'm gonna
you
flick
off.
your ear.
Flick.
I'm gonna
flicking,
flip you the
sorry.
bird.
Sorry. See, I'm flicking.
I bring up that question for if our other host, who is usually with us, Kevin, listens, because he always, when I was teaching with him, would always walk into my class and flick me off, and we kind of made it like a game of, can the students figure or I see Kevin doing it to me, and if they did, they got a point. And I haven't worked with Kevin for a while, and so I've missed him. And so I was thinking about that today. Of like, is it flick or flip? What do people say?
I tell you what, Kevin's vacationing this spring break week with his family in Virginia, and I asked him to bring me.
Dork say flick.
I asked Kevin to bring me one thing from Virginia, and he said he's not going to do it. I asked him to bring me a Virginia ham.
That's not a difficult request, Kevin.
Hey,
awesome. All right, well, I'm gonna wrap the show up. All right, thanks for listening to episode 145 of the Dingers podcast. Make sure you go and follow Cubs on Tap, and if you're not subscribed to the On Tap Sports Network YouTube channel, do so. We had a lot of people watching tonight. Make sure you're subscribed so you catch the best in Chicago baseball news and podcasts. We got you all covered for every Chicago sports. So go Cubs, and thanks for listening.